78. He was an NFL columnist for the Dallas Morning News, one of the great American newspapers, then moved to New York and covered the New York Giants in the NFL. So if it's Giants or Cowboys, he knows what he's talking about. And he's got a new book called How About Them Cowboys? It's going to be released. What is the date today? It's October 9th. What is the date today? Is it the 9th today?
It's the 9th.
Oh, it's getting released today.
There you go.
Well, look at that. I'm looking at that and I'm thinking, wait, it is October 9th. It's an inside look at Jerry Jones and his empire and plenty of other cowboy stories and drama via the Coward Global Satellite Network. Gary Myers joining us. So explain this to me. You know, Jason Garrett, I mean, again, it's not a disaster. It's not Dave Campo. It's not man overboard. But the fans and the media are very tough on him. But Jerry seems to have an allegiance to Jason Garrett. How close are they? It appears he almost treats him like a son. Like, I mean, were you surprised at the closeness? Or what did you find in that relationship while writing the book?
Well, considering how close they are, I'm kind of surprised that Jason and his wife don't actually live in the Jones mansion in Dallas. But they are that close. I think Jerry has finally opted for stability in that organization after going through a lot of coaches following Jimmy Johnson. And, Jason, I think Jason is the perfect coach for Jerry just in terms of he lets Jerry be Jerry. He lets Jerry play with his toy, this $5 billion enterprise. And in return, Jerry's been very loyal to Garrett, which I think has upset a lot of people in Dallas, especially after his decision on Sunday night not to go for it on 4th and 1 in overtime in Houston.
Is it possible that Jerry Jones likes Dak Prescott more than Jason Garrett likes Dak Prescott, and Jason knows it? And that Jason doesn't love Dak and looks around the league and sees Goff and Mahomes. What do you make of that? Does Jason truly believe in Dak?
Well, right now there's no alternative, so he better believe in him. Otherwise, this season is going to be shot in the next couple of weeks. But, Dak played so well in 2016 that Romo was unable to get off the bench. He gave that concession speech around November of 2016. When he was ready to play but realized that he couldn't because Dak, I think, was in the process of winning 11 games in a row. And to that point, Romo and Garrett were extremely close. They used to go to Maverick games together. They went to Duke to watch them play basketball. They made that trip together. And Garrett's decision not to even allow Romo to compete to win his job back was very similar to what happened to Drew Bledsoe in 2001 in New England. And whereas Bledsoe and Belichick were never close by any means, Romo and Garrett were very close. And Jason's decision not to allow Tony to even compete, that split up that friendship, and there was a lot of friction there at the end. If that hadn't happened, if they were still on good terms at the end of that season, perhaps Tony would have come back thinking he had a chance to compete for his job in training camp in 2017. Instead, he asked for his release, considered signing with the Texans, and then decided not to.
Jerry still holds a press conference after every game. He's the only owner that has a Monday radio show. So when people tell me, he's less involved, let me lean on you. You covered this team and followed this team. People, has he disengaged, or does Jerry, is his shadow hovering over game plans? Is his shadow hovering over draft day?
Colin, I saw that series that Amazon did last year where they followed the Cowboys around for the year, and it was startling to me that in a Monday morning coaches meeting, Jerry and sometimes Steven would be in that meeting where they were discussing what went right and what went wrong on game day. And I don't think there's any other owner in the league, maybe Al Davis back in the day, who ever did anything like that. As far as hovering over the game plan, I don't think he's that involved to that extent that he's telling Jason, we got to throw the ball more, we got to run it more. He is involved in the draft, but he doesn't impose his will to the extent that people think he does. And I have a great story in the book, an anecdote about the 2014 draft with Johnny Manziel. And Stephen Jones gave me a play-by-play of the draft room from about 10 minutes before the Cowboys were on the clock until they went ahead and took Zach Martin over Johnny Manziel, despite the fact that Jerry went around the room and basically was pleading with anybody else to side with him on Manziel. And when he couldn't find anybody, he said, okay, go ahead, take Zach Martin. But after the pick was turned in, Jerry turned to Steven, who was sitting right next to him, slapped him really hard on the leg and said, son, I didn't get to where I was in my life by playing things down the middle. And if you just play things down the middle and don't take any risks, you're not going to get very far either. And Steven was really hurt by that because he felt he was doing what was right for the organization. But to Jerry's credit, if you want to give him credit on anything, he didn't force him to take Manziel.
Yeah, well, that's part of it. The book is How About Them Cowboys, released today, Amazon.com. Inside look, Jerry Jones' empire, and plenty of the other Cowboy drama. I want to shift to the New York Giants, a team you covered forever. Odell Beckham came out, and I actually defended Odell. I said, listen, there's very few guys on an NFL roster. In the NBA, you can't be cut. In Major League Baseball, you can't be cut. In the NFL, you could cut Tom Brady tomorrow. You'd have a cap hit, but you could do it. I mean, Odell's one of the few people in that locker room that can come out, say something, and not be demoted. Didn't he just mention the elephant in the room, that Eli appears to be at times often a shot fighter? I mean, he's one of the more popular players. I think his words matter. This is one of the few times Odell, I'm like, it didn't seem hurtful. He didn't seem inauthentic. I mean, what did you make of his comments about Eli and the organization?
I think that Odell's statements were right on the money. Everything he said, it was hard to disagree with. Why isn't the ball going more than 20 yards down the field? Is Eli the problem? Well, I'm not really sure. And by not giving his endorsement, you know that he thinks Eli is the problem. It's just, you just don't say those things. That stuff should remain in the locker room. At least that's the way coaches want it.
Right.
And the thing about Odell is that everybody was saying, from April 1st until he signed his contract, Odell has grown up. That he's matured and he's going to be more of a team guy and not just talking about Odell and getting the ball. Well, what he was doing there then, Colin, is that as soon as he realized the Giants were willing to trade him, and as soon as he realized that maybe they weren't going to give him a new contract, all of a sudden he grew up for 4 months. And as soon as he got his money, is it really surprising he's gone back to being Odell? He was protecting his money, which turned out to be a $90 million extension with $65 million guaranteed. Now he's got his money in his pocket. The first month of the season didn't go as planned. He hadn't scored a touchdown, so he spoke up. That's just Odell being Odell. The real Odell was on vacation for about 4 months until he got his new contract.
By the way, Sam Darnold won this weekend. Sam Darnold's favored to win again this weekend. I suggested on multiple times that you start looking at Carson Wentz. If you have to play him 10 times minimum in the next 5 years and 20 times in the next decade, I got to do better than Eli Manning. Do you think they'll rue the day? Do you think there were people in the Giants organization that tried to get the GM to draft Darnold? Or do you believe there was some fear based on the previous season of benching Eli and an older Giants fan base really pushing back, deeply offended? How close do you think they got to a quarterback pick?
Right away, when Gettleman was introduced as the GM a couple days before the last game of the 2017 season, he came out and endorsed Eli.
Yes.
Then when Shermer got hired a few weeks later, he endorsed Eli and said, well, we watched him in the Philadelphia game in December, and he can still sling it. Well, they picked out one game out of a 3-13 season, and they still lost that game to a backup quarterback. Ultimately, what I think is what happened on draft day, it wasn't so much that they were convinced Eli still had 2 good years left in him, and it certainly wasn't because they thought that Saquon Barkley was a generational player, even though he was, and he is, rather. I firmly believe now that the Giants passed on a quarterback because in their evaluations, they didn't look at any of those 4 guys who went in the top 10 as being our guy for the next 15 years. Otherwise, it's malpractice by that organization to pass on one of those guys, to keep a 37-year-old quarterback who's coming off 2 or 3 really bad years when people don't think he can play anymore. It doesn't make sense, and I have more respect for Dave Gettleman to think that he stuck with Eli because he still thinks Eli can be great. Now, what I think happened is they just felt like the other 4 guys none of them were going to be their guy. You can criticize them for that, but at least that was their evaluation of those rookies.
Yeah.
We'll see how it turns out. I think they made a huge mistake that would just, Colin, it would be accentuated if Sam Darnold is finally the guy to end that Super Bowl streak of not being in the Super Bowl that's now at 50 years for the New York Jets.
Finally, let's wrap back around to the Cowboys. The book is called How About Them Cowboys? Gary Myers, a New York Times best-selling author, Inside the Huddle, Stars and Legends. Was there something, because obviously you covered them before, and being a Giants guy, you've been to Dallas at least once a year for the last 15, 20 years. But was there something that surprised you, a story, a nugget, a culture that surprised you writing this book?
You know, Colin, I think that maybe the best quote that I have in the book is from a story that Jimmy Johnson told me. And this happened, he told me this last year, but this happened a few years ago. Troy Aikman was beside himself when Jimmy left. He just didn't like Barry Switzer. You know, Barry had recruited him to Oklahoma. Troy broke his leg. By the time he came back, Barry changed the offense, and Troy transferred to UCLA. They're sitting around having a beer, and Troy says to Jimmy, and this is, to me, it's just so compelling. He just says, you know, we could have been Brady and Belichick. Why did you have to leave? And Jimmy basically told Troy, I don't think like that. My whole life is predicated on being happy, and I just wasn't happy. So even if I left Super Bowls on the table, it doesn't bother me to this day. And I think that really tells the story of the last 20 years of the Cowboys, how these two guys who were incredibly successful, and Jerry and Jimmy, with unbelievable egos, couldn't find a way to share the credit to keep this thing going. Free agency had just started. The Cowboys had the best young talent in the league. Even if they start losing free agents, Jimmy was so good at personnel, he would have replenished the talent. That team easily could have won 4 in a row, because they won 3 out of 4, and they could have won 5 or 6 in a row. And at that point, Colin, their talent was so much better than any other team in the league, and they were all young.
Yes.
They could have sustained that for a long time. And I think that kind of hovers over this entire book, the what could have been if these guys found a way to get along.
Can't wait to read it. Gary, love having you on the show. Good luck. The book is called How About Them Cowboys? Thank you, sir.
Anytime, Colin. Thank you for having me on.
By the way, Goulet, you grew up in Connecticut and were a Cowboy fan.
Yep.
And I've said this before. The last NFL team, you'd think it's the Patriots. But I can watch the Patriots, and it's almost like they're just kind of a business. And I'm a chef. Sports is my produce. I like the best fresh produce, right? New England's really good produce. They're well run. They're smart. I admire the New England Patriots. The last team I was a fan of, would get emotional about, scream at the TV, was the Dallas Cowboys when they had Aikman. That team they were literally like a movie. You had the head coach with the big personality, and the star quarterback, and the star receiver was controversial, and a star running back, and Jerry was this young maverick owner, the hole in the roof. That was the last. They were a movie. The Cowboys were. That's why I've always said I always love when USC and the Miami Hurricanes are great in college football. They transcend the sport. The Cowboys were the Lakers in cleats. They were just bigger than the league. They just felt massive. And it was like star coach, star receiver, star back, star quarterback, star stadium, star uniform, star brand. The Patriots, it's a machine. It's a conveyor belt of excellence. But I don't have an emotional, like if New England, if Belichick Brady retired tomorrow, I'd be tip of the cap. Nice run.
That was the last emotional response to sports that you've had. That's been a long time.
No. It was the last NFL team that I was emotionally, I didn't feel as good on a Monday if they lost.
You don't get emotional about NFL teams anymore.
I mean, a couple years ago, the Seahawks played the Patriots in a Super Bowl. My hometown team, and the team, I lived in Connecticut, but I grew up in the Northwest, and I was like, coin flip, I don't care. I didn't have it. I liked Russell Wilson a lot, so I was like, it'd be kind of cool.
Do you not want to reveal your biases by telling us which team still has some emotional ties to you?
None of them do.
None. It's all dead for you.
No. Listen, if you listen to me, I admire excellence. Listen, it's your job to be excellent. If you're not, I'm not going to talk about you. I don't care. Now, I do like I will say this, that the Ohio State footballs and the Yankee baseball and the Laker basketball.
We like interesting. We're in the content.
Yeah,
business.
and I think big traditional brands are good for my business. So I like to see the Celtics face the Warriors in the finals.
I'm not asking you what you think, Colin. I'm asking you what you feel.
What I feel? No, I don't even care about those teams, John. I don't. All my home teams were so bad as a kid growing up that I had no problem rooting for other teams.
You used to like the Washington Huskies.
Yeah. Broke my heart 1,000 times, and after you get dumped 100 times by the girl.
That's how I feel about the Dolphins.
You've been dumped so many times, you don't.
It's just, now I know what to expect with them.
Yeah.
I can never be fooled. But I still get emotional about the Heat.
But
I will hold on to that.
That Cowboy team was the Showtime Lakers. The brand, the coach, it was Pat Riley, the Showtime, Magic, Kareem, it was like stars, the Fabulous Forum, there were celebrities. It was like the Showtime Lakers and the Cowboys with Aikman and Jimmy Johnson transcended their sport. It was the best show on television. Threw a shoe at a TV once or twice.
It's like you're reminiscing about, when you used to feel for sports.
No, I feel, you know what I feel?
No, the business takes it out of you a little bit. Once the longer that you're in the business, the harder it is to maintain true fandom, especially on like a national level where you have to talk about everything. Well, local level, you can get more
Drew Brees
attached.
came on the show today. I love sports again. I mean, he made me, there's a lot I like about sports.
I'm not saying you don't like sports.
I feel great energy with sports. I can't. LeBron Lakers, I'm going to be energized watching that. That'll be fun. Joy with the news.
No. Turn on the news. This is the Herd Line News.
One team used to